There are some wounds the world cannot see, yet they weigh heavy on the soul. A woman knows this truth. She knows the sting of betrayal, the silence of loneliness, the ache that lingers long after the tears have dried. A broken heart is not just a wound of love, it is a wound of trust, of hope, of spirit. And yet, in that very breaking, the seeds of transformation are sown. For when the world shatters her, she learns that the pieces are safest in the hands of God. Her journey begins not with triumph, but with surrender. She does not rise in power at first. She falls to her knees, and in the quiet of her prayer, she whispers the name of the one who hears the cries no one else listens to. Her brokenness becomes her offering, her tears her prayer, her silence her testimony. In that surrender, she does not lose herself. She finds strength hidden in the folds of her weakness. She learns that the arms of God are the softest place to land and the strongest arms to carry her forward. Faith becomes her healing balm. It does not erase the pain, but it redeems it. Each wound becomes a scar of survival, each scar a mark of beauty. Where the world sees ruin, God sees rebirth. Where the world sees the end, God whispers, "This is only the beginning." She discovers that faith is not a distant song, but a steady rhythm, guiding her feet when her steps falter. Faith does not demand perfection. It demands trust. And in trusting, she learns to breathe again. Grace is her rebirth. Grace tells her she is not defined by what broke her, but by the one who mends her. Grace lifts her chin, dries her tears, and places in her spirit a fire that cannot be quenched. She rises not as a woman shattered, but as a woman reshaped by divine hands. She is no longer just surviving. She is living, breathing, glowing with the light of God's love. Her identity is no longer tied to heartbreak, but to hope. No longer chained to what was lost, but free in what has been found. And as she walks forward, she carries more than her own healing. She carries a torch. Her journey becomes a testimony. She becomes the voice for the voiceless, the hope for the hopeless, the light for those still wandering in the darkness of despair. Her story whispers to others, you can be broken and still be beautiful. You can be crushed and still be chosen. You can be lost and still be found. Her scars become a roadmap for others to follow, leading them not just to survival, but to salvation. From a broken heart to God, a woman's journey is not just her own. It is a legacy of resilience, of redemption, of radiant faith. She stands as living proof that no heartbreak is too deep for God's healing, no valley too dark for His light, no soul too lost for His love. Pain often comes as an uninvited guest, sudden and unwelcome, shaking the very foundations of a woman's soul. It can creep in through betrayal, through disappointment, through the breaking of promises once thought unshakable. It can arrive in the silence of loneliness, in the echo of dreams left unfinished, or in the harsh words that linger long after they have been spoken. Pain is rarely gentle. It is sharp. It is piercing. It is heavy. Yet hidden within its weight lies a strange kind of gift, one not easily recognized in the moment. Pain carries with it the seed of transformation. It strips away illusions, peels back the layers we use to cover our vulnerabilities, and forces us to confront the truth of who we are and who we are meant to become. When the heart shatters, it feels like the end. The pieces scatter in every direction, and in that scattering, a woman wonders if she will ever be whole again. She grieves not only what was lost, but who she once was before the breaking. Yet in that emptiness, something profound begins to stir. Pain becomes the soil where resilience is planted, where strength is cultivated, where the old gives way to the possibility of something new. It is often through the deepest cracks that light first finds its way in, and it is in the very act of breaking that space is made for transformation to take root. A woman in pain begins to see life differently. The things that once seemed so vital begin to lose their power, and the things that truly matter rise to the surface. Pain strips away pride and vanity, leaving behind a raw and honest self. In this rawness, she begins to see her reflection more clearly. She notices the strength in her survival, The courage in her tears, the bravery in her ability to stand again after being knocked down. Pain has a way of revealing not just what is fragile, but also what is unbreakable. And in that revelation, transformation begins to unfold. Transformation is rarely sudden. It is not a burst of lightning, but a slow unfolding, like the dawn creeping gently over the horizon. A woman learns to breathe again, though at first the breaths are shallow. She learns to trust again, though the trust may tremble. She learns to walk forward, though the steps may be uncertain. Every small act of moving forward is an act of transformation. Every tear that falls waters the ground of her becoming. Every scar becomes a testimony, not of her defeat, but of her survival. Pain, when surrendered to, becomes a teacher. It teaches patience, it teaches humility, it teaches faith. In the quiet spaces of pain, she learns the art of surrender. Surrender not to despair, but to the hands of God who gathers every broken piece with care. She learns that her strength alone is not enough, but that divine strength carries her further than she ever imagined. In those sleepless nights when the ache feels unbearable, she finds comfort in prayer. In the moments when her spirit feels empty, she discovers the power of grace. Slowly, her brokenness becomes her offering, and her weakness becomes the very place where God's strength shines brightest. Through pain, her identity is reshaped. She no longer defines herself by what was taken from her, but by what has been given through her endurance. She finds new purpose, a deeper compassion, and a greater understanding of the suffering of others. Pain enlarges her heart, teaching her to walk with gentleness, to speak with kindness, to embrace others in their brokenness, because she knows what it means to be broken too. In her transformation, she becomes not just a survivor, but a beacon, a living testimony of what it means to rise from ashes into light. Pain may have been the beginning of her breaking, but it is also the beginning of her becoming. It was the door that opened her to strength she never knew she possessed, to faith she never thought she could carry, to love that goes deeper than wounds. What once felt like an end became the birth of a new beginning, and what once felt like a curse became the very soil in which her destiny was planted. In pain, she discovered that transformation is not about escaping brokenness, but about allowing brokenness to be the pathway to wholeness. Strength is often misunderstood as the ability to hold everything together, to never falter, to never cry, to never show weakness. The world teaches that strength is in the clenched fist, in the stiff back, in the unbending will. But true strength is not always loud, nor is it always seen in battle or in resistance. For a woman who has walked through heartbreak, who has carried the weight of sorrow on her shoulders, the greatest strength she discovers is not in resisting pain, but in surrendering it. It is in laying down the burdens she cannot carry, opening her hands, and trusting them to God. In surrender, she finds a power far greater than her own, a strength not born of pride, but of humility. There comes a moment when holding on becomes too heavy, when the pieces she tries to keep together cut deeper into her spirit. She realizes that her effort to control every outcome, to heal every wound by her own hands, only deepens her weariness. In this moment of breaking, she discovers the quiet courage to let go. Surrender is not defeat. It is not giving up. It is an act of bravery, a declaration that she is no longer willing to be her own savior, but will trust the one who is greater than her. She bows her head, bends her knees, and in that sacred posture, strength is born. Surrender demands honesty. It strips away the mask she wears to appear strong before others. It calls her to speak the truth of her pain, not to deny it, not to disguise it, but to place it as it is before God. In those tears, she confesses what she cannot handle, and in that confession, she finds release. Strength found in surrender is not the absence of struggle, but the willingness to lay that struggle in hands stronger than hers. It is in the breaking of her pride that her soul is set free to heal. The world may not understand this strength. To others, surrender may look like weakness, like giving up, like failure. But the woman who has lived this journey knows better. She knows that it takes far greater courage to release control than to hold on to it. She knows that it is harder to trust unseen hands than to cling to what is familiar, even when the familiar is painful. She knows that surrender does not bind her. It liberates her. In letting go, she finds herself carried. In giving up her illusion of control, she discovers true peace. Surrender teaches her patience. She learns that her life unfolds not in her timing, but in God's perfect timing. She begins to see that every unanswered question, every delay, every door that closed, carries within it a purpose she may not yet understand. Strength in surrender is the willingness to walk forward without knowing every detail, to trust that the path will be revealed one step at a time. This patience softens her, humbles her, and deepens her faith. She no longer rushes to fix what is broken, but allows God to mend what only He can. In surrender, she also learns trust that her tears are not wasted, that her prayers are not unheard, that her heart is not forgotten. She trusts that the one who holds the stars in place also holds her life in His hands. This trust becomes the foundation upon which she stands. It is unshakable not because she is strong, but because the one she leans on cannot be moved. Trust becomes her new strength, a strength not of flesh but of spirit. As she continues this journey, she begins to see the fruit of her surrender. What once weighed her down no longer holds power over her. What once broke her now shapes her. She discovers that surrender has given her a new kind of strength, the strength to forgive, the strength to love again, the strength to walk with hope even when the road is uncertain. This is not the brittle strength of resistance, but the supple strength of grace. It bends, but it does not break. It yields, but it does not falter. Strength found in surrender is the quiet fire that burns within her, the steady voice that whispers when fear tries to rise, the deep peace that remains even in the storm. It is a strength born not of her will, but of her willingness to trust. It is the power of letting go and discovering that she was never meant to carry it all alone. And in that sacred surrender, she finds the strength to rise, to endure, to shine with a light that nothing in this world can extinguish. Faith does not always arrive like a thunderclap. Sometimes it comes like a whisper, soft but steady, carrying a woman through her darkest nights. When the heart has been broken, when loss has left her trembling, when disappointment has carved deep lines in her soul, she reaches for something beyond herself. The world offers quick remedies, distractions to numb the ache, but they never truly heal. Only faith has the power to soothe the rawness of her wounds, to pour a balm over her pain that brings not just comfort but restoration. Faith is the medicine of the spirit, the healing balm that seeps into every fracture, binding together what seemed beyond repair. A broken heart can feel like an endless wound, bleeding quietly behind a smile. People around her may not see it, but she feels the sharpness of its sting in every breath. She wonders if wholeness is even possible again, if she will ever laugh with the same fullness or love with the same trust. It is in this fragile state that faith begins to move. Faith does not demand that she ignore her pain, nor does it erase the memory of what broke her. Instead, faith teaches her that wounds can become testimonies and scars can be made beautiful. It teaches her that brokenness is not the end, but the very soil where healing begins. Faith whispers to her that she is not alone, even when loneliness presses in like a heavy fog. It reminds her that unseen hands are carrying her, that every tear she has shed has been counted, and every prayer whispered in the silence has been heard. Faith gives her the courage to believe that her story is not defined by the moment of breaking, but by the one who writes the chapters beyond it. Where despair tries to convince her that her life is over, faith plants the quiet conviction that a new beginning waits just beyond the horizon. There is power in believing, even when the evidence seems small. Faith does not ask her to see the entire road. It asks her to take one step at a time. Each step is healing. Each act of trust is a salve to the wounded soul. When she chooses faith, even in her weakness, she discovers strength she did not know she had. It is not her strength alone, but the strength of God flowing through her. Like a gentle hand placed on a wound, faith steadies her trembling, calms her fears, and speaks peace into the chaos of her heart. As days turn into nights and nights back into days, faith becomes her constant companion. It is the thread that holds her together when everything else falls apart. It teaches her to look at the scars not with bitterness, but with gratitude, for they are evidence that she has survived. Faith does not erase the memory of the pain, but it transforms the memory, turning it from a source of despair into a wellspring of wisdom and compassion. She begins to see how her pain connects her to others, how her healing can inspire someone else to keep going. Faith allows her to lift her eyes from her wounds and see the greater purpose in her journey. In the quiet of prayer, she feels faith working like medicine. Every whispered word is like a drop of balm, soothing her spirit, calming her restlessness, and assuring her that she is being heard. In scripture, in song, in silence, faith speaks. It tells her that healing may not come all at once, but it will come. It assures her that her broken heart can beat again with hope, that her weary soul can rise again in strength. Faith does not rush her, nor does it push her. It walks with her gently at her own pace, reminding her that true healing is a process, not a race. With time, she begins to feel the shift. The ache that once consumed her no longer holds the same power. The sorrow that once weighed heavy is now lightened by hope. She learns to laugh again, not because the pain never existed, but because faith has taught her joy is still possible in its wake. She learns to love again, not because she has forgotten the past, but because faith assures her that love is always worth the risk. Faith has become the balm that makes living beautiful again, even after brokenness. Grace is the quiet miracle that enters when the soul has reached the end of itself. After the storm of heartbreak, after the long nights of sorrow, after the heavy weight of unanswered questions, grace arrives not with thunder, but with gentleness. It does not scold for the tears shed, nor does it shame for the moments of weakness. Grace bends low, lifting the woman who thought she would never rise again. It whispers that her story is not finished, that her brokenness is not her identity, that her past does not define her future. Grace is not earned, it is given, and in its giving, a rebirth begins. A woman marked by pain often carries with her a sense of loss too deep for words. She may feel as if she is standing in ruins, surrounded by memories of what could have been. Yet grace looks at ruins and sees foundations. Where she sees ashes, grace sees the chance for beauty to be born. This is the mystery of grace. It transforms what was meant to destroy into the very soil of new life. It does not erase the past, but it redeems it, reshaping the story so that what once was sorrow now becomes a testimony of strength. Through grace, she is not the same woman she was before the breaking. She emerges new, with a heart softened yet stronger, humbled yet radiant. Rebirth through grace is not a single moment, but a process. It begins the day she stops clinging to what has been lost and opens her heart to what can be given. She may resist at first, fearing that to let go means forgetting, fearing that moving forward means betrayal of the love or the dreams she once cherished. But grace is patient. It waits, it calls, it gently urges her to step into light. And when she does, even if with trembling steps, she feels the power of renewal beginning to flow. There is a cleansing in grace. It washes away the shame she thought she would always carry. It lifts the guilt that whispered she was not enough, that somehow she was to blame for her brokenness. Grace silences those lies. It declares her worthy, not because of what she has done, but because of who she is in the eyes of God. With this assurance, she begins to walk differently. Her shoulders straighten, her spirit steadies, and her voice carries a new strength. She is no longer defined by pain but by promise, no longer chained by despair but freed by love. As she embraces this rebirth, she notices the world around her with fresh eyes. The same sun that once rose on days filled with sorrow now shines with hope. The same sky that once felt heavy with despair now feels like a canvas painted with possibility. Grace teaches her to see beauty in small things, the laughter of children, the kindness of a stranger, the stillness of morning. Her heart, once dulled by pain, awakens again to joy. This awakening is not fragile but resilient, for it has been forged through struggle and restored by grace. In her rebirth, she discovers new purpose. Where once she saw herself as broken beyond use, she now realizes she is a vessel through which others can find hope. Her scars, once sources of shame, become testimonies of survival and reminders of God's healing touch. She speaks not from theory but from experience, not from books but from battles lived and overcome. Grace transforms her pain into wisdom, her sorrow into compassion, her silence into a voice that can uplift others walking the same path. There is power in being made new. The woman who was once bowed under the weight of grief now stands as a testament to resilience. She carries herself not with pride but with gratitude, knowing that every step she takes is evidence of grace at work. Her life, once marked by endings, is now alive with beginnings. She knows storms may come again, but she also knows she will never walk through them alone. Grace has anchored her, and in that anchoring, she has found peace that nothing in this world can shake. Rebirth through grace is not about erasing the story of pain, but about rewriting its meaning. It is about rising from the ashes with wings that carry her higher than before. It is about seeing herself not as a victim of circumstance, but as a living witness of divine love. She has been broken, but she has been rebuilt. She has been lost, but she has been found. She has been wounded, but through grace she has been made whole again. A legacy is not built in a single moment, nor is it shaped only by the victories that shine brightly before others. Often, it is carved in silence, in the quiet battles fought behind closed doors, in the tears shed in the dark, and in the courage to rise again when no one else believed she could. A woman who has walked from brokenness to God carries within her a legacy that is not measured by wealth or fame, but by the hope she leaves behind in the hearts of those who encounter her. Hope becomes her gift, her testimony, her inheritance to a world that so often forgets how to believe again. Hope is not naive optimism, nor is it the denial of pain. It is the light that refuses to be extinguished even when the winds of despair blow hard. For the woman who has endured heartbreak, who has been torn by loss, who has wrestled with the weight of sorrow, hope is not cheap. It has been fought for, prayed over, and born from the ashes of her suffering. It is this hard-earned hope that becomes the cornerstone of her legacy. She carries it in her words, in her actions, in the very way she walks through life. Wherever she goes, she leaves traces of encouragement, reminders to others that healing is possible, that joy can return, and that God never leaves a soul abandoned. Her children, her friends, her community, all who cross her path, begin to feel the ripple of her hope. She teaches not by preaching but by living, showing what it means to endure with grace, to trust in the unseen, to keep moving forward when every reason said to give up. Her life becomes a living letter, written not with ink, but with perseverance and faith. Those who once watched her brokenness now witness her strength, and in that witnessing, they find courage for their own battles. Hope multiplies because she chooses to carry it. A legacy of hope is powerful because it does not end with her, it outlives her. Long after her words fade, the memory of her resilience remains. A child who saw her pray in the midnight hour will remember that prayer carries power. A friend who witnessed her forgiveness will remember that bitterness is not the only response to pain. A neighbor who saw her kindness, even in her own struggle, will remember that love is stronger than hardship. These seeds of hope take root in the lives of others, and long after she has passed them on, they continue to grow, bearing fruit in generations she may never see. Hope also transforms how she sees her own scars. No longer ashamed of what broke her, she wears her scars as a signpost for others, proof that survival is possible, that healing is real, that God can turn the most shattered story into something beautiful. She does not hide what she endured. She shares it with humility, because she knows someone else, is waiting for the same reassurance she once needed. Her story becomes a lantern in someone else's darkness, a hand extended to the weary, a reminder that even the most painful chapters can give birth to redemption. In building a legacy of hope, she learns that her life is bigger than her own comfort. She understands that her journey was never only about her, it was also about those who would come after her, those who would look at her life and draw strength for their own. Hope makes her generous, compassionate, and open-hearted, because she knows that what she carries is not meant to be hoarded but to be shared. The hope she found in God is not a private treasure. It is a gift meant for the world. There is a quiet majesty in a life lived this way. A woman transformed by grace and anchored in faith becomes more than her own story. She becomes part of the larger story of humanity, a reminder that resilience is possible, that faith is enough, that hope can bloom even in the harshest deserts. Her laughter after sorrow, her joy after mourning, her peace after chaos all stand as proof that life is never too broken to be made whole again. And so her legacy is not merely in the words she spoke or the deeds she did, but in the hope she kindled in others. Long after her footsteps fade from the earth, her light will remain, carried in the lives of those she touched. Hope will continue to ripple outward, shaping hearts, guiding souls, and igniting courage in those yet to come. This is the power of a woman's journey from brokenness to God, that her healing does not end with her, but becomes a gift that keeps on giving, a legacy of hope that will endure beyond time itself. She has walked through pain and discovered that even in the deepest breaking, transformation begins. She has learned that true strength is not in clinging but in surrender, that faith is the balm that soothes the unseen wounds, that grace can lift her from ashes and make her new, and that hope, once found, must be carried as a torch for others. Her journey is not simply about her own healing, it is about the testimony she leaves behind. From brokenness to surrender, from surrender to faith, from faith to grace, and from grace to a legacy of hope, her life tells a story the world needs to hear, that no valley is too deep, no wound too wide, no loss too heavy for God to redeem. Her scars are not signs of defeat, but marks of survival, and her voice is not just her own, but an echo for every soul searching for light. In the end, her journey becomes a declaration that love is stronger than pain, that faith is stronger than fear, and that hope, once born, can never die.